Not last week, but the week before, I participated in a colloquy together with German colleagues. And it was an experience of learning from one another, but also how to pastor, how to minister in a divided world, in a world of tension and of brokenness where we all wrestle with various questions and various situations. The same way for the colleagues from Germany as it is for us here at St. Paul's. Now, on Wednesday of that week, we did some field trip to explore faith and different churches in a different way. And it was the first time for me that one of the colleagues from State College, Jess Cast, took us to Bald Eagle State Park, that's right by Bellefonte, a little bit up. They have a wonderful lake there. And we did what you call kayak church. I've never heard of kayak church. So everyone got in a kayak and we gathered together and had a prayer and singing and holding the water and remembering our baptism and knowing we're all held and connected. And doing that out in creation was very lovely. Now, when our associate conference minister, Nora Faust, got in the kayak, she tried to adjust the places where you can press your feet so you're stable in it. And when she did that, she leaned a little bit too much over and whoop, the kayak capsized and she was in the water. Now, it wasn't just that she was in the water. Right when she got in, it was not too steep, it was pretty shallow, but it was a very slippery mat there, and she could hardly turn and couldn't crawl out of the water, slipped back. And she said she just went into a panic attack until someone reached out with an oar, with a paddle that she could hold on to. And finally, she could get out. Whew. Now, this was literally being unstable and toppling off, ending up in the water and wet and trying to get out. But there can be other situations in our lives when we feel like on thin ice or feel like this is too much for us. We feel like paddling water, really anxious and trying to keep our head above water. And I remember one of those times from my life, and I was dealing with a lot of loss and a lot of grieving and so on, and it felt to me like a dam building up in me, and I was scared that if I open and let the water out, something would break and I could never stop the water anymore. I wouldn't stop crying anymore. Well, thank God it didn't. I didn't fall apart, but it was helpful and very important for me to do that grieving work and to come through that. Now, it is very typical for every person that we face situations like where we feel like it's too much for us. And that's my taking from this scripture passage where the disciples are in the boat and the wind and the storms and the waves, it's almost like it's too much for them. They're about to capsize and they're throwing their hands up and don't know what else to do. Now, it's interesting when we read this scripture passage, not just like what happened back then, but also in a deeper sense of what are the meanings and symbols of this story, the different elements. And when you think of a boat, from ancient times, the church itself has always been described as a boat on the wide sea of waters. That's why when you think of the church is called the nave, the main nave, there are side naves, just like navy from the water. And the church building often is like an upside down boat. So think of it as we're in this boat together, on the sea of life. And it can be very treacherous. And water, the water itself, the sea, the ocean, the big lake, was always understood in a deep sense as the dangerous water because you were really exposed. If you were out on the ocean, you got a bad storm, you were toast. Or fried, or whatever you call it, boiled. And I remember, or in the creation stories and the ancient understanding of ocean and water, it's always where danger lurks, like the big sea monsters. They come up in the Psalms and in the creation stories. They're all there. So water, deep water, is dangerous. I remember way back as teenagers, together with Sigrid, we went out on bikes to a lake, to a small dam, and we were swimming and just enjoying summertime there. And then I thought, well, it's not too big. Let me swim all the way through. It wasn't a big problem. So the water was shallow, but then it got deeper, and I thought, what if in the big lake there is something coming at me from underneath? Exactly. That's what I felt like. Ooh. So I had this feeling in my belly that not so easy, or kind of dangerous, situations to face there. And to me, when I think of this Bible passage, the main message to me is that Jesus comes to the disciples in their fear, when they're overwhelmed, where they feel like it's too much for me. And the deep message for us isn't that a wisdom, a deep message of faith, that Jesus comes to us when we feel like our life is falling apart, when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel like it's too much for us to deal with on our own. He comes, he shows up, he reaches out for us, and he calms the storm. He calms the waves, he calms the inner storm. Sometimes my scientific mind thinks of, how the heck did Jesus walk on water? How did he do that? How did Peter walk out of the boat on water? How did that happen? I think that really irks me, because I feel like I want to be able to do that too. But when I understand it in a symbolic way, when I think of the water as the dangerous, the treacherous, the deep, scary situations, there is a force, there is Jesus, there is the presence of God that keeps us buoying, that we don't sink, that keeps our boat, our lives above the water, where we can, yes, may be able to get wet, but still swim. Second message that I get from this scripture passage is, Jesus calls Peter out of the safety of the boat. We are called out of the boat. It's sometimes so easy and so comfortable to stay in the safety of the inside, the safety, what we've always known, where we'll always been. But Jesus says, trust, have faith. And as Alex, you shared, the confidence, actually the little The literal meaning of the word confidence is with faith. Con is with, fide is faith. So what we do when Jesus calls Peter out, he says, have faith, trust. Even though it's dangerous territory, even though we face dangerous situations in our lives, we've always been there. It's not the absence of fear and of danger that Jesus calls us to, but he says, no matter what you're facing, trust and have faith that in and through that, you will be able to walk above, keep your head above water, and you will not sink. Trust. Have faith. When and how did you face the situations where you felt like, yikes, too much? Feel like you need help because you felt like sinking? And how did Jesus show up? Maybe in a different person, maybe in someone who held out an oar or a pedal for you, literal or symbolic way to help you pull out, help you to get out of the water. I remember our little, precious little Felix. He was 3 years old. And we were in Virginia, previous congregation. And it was January, and he had an infection, just a very typical upper respiratory infection. And he got over it, but he drank a lot. And he peed a lot, and he drank more, and he peed more, and he drank and drank and drank more, and it never stopped. So we went to the doctor. Didn't take long, just took a blood sugar test. Turned out diabetes, type 1, at age 3. Talking about feeling like sinking and feeling like overwhelmed and not knowing how to deal with the situation. We have experienced Jesus' presence through the loving and caring congregation that came around us, that helped us, that provided meals, that kind of held us together with the prayers, the presence, just their caring part. Caring nature, where we felt like, yes, we're together in this. When and how did you feel like it became too much for you? And how did you experience the presence of Christ in and through it?